everyone, welcome back to another College Chaps podcast. Well, on this episode, it's Thanksgiving, or it will be Thanksgiving by the time most of you listen to it. So this is our reasons to be thankful episode, and we are very thankful for what has turned out to be a truly chaotic football season. But first, we are the College Chaps. I'm George, and I'm joined by my two amigos who I missed desperately last week. How are you both?
Well, weird. You got a professional in last week, George, and it was the best podcast that this podcast's ever had. So me and Alex were thinking we might never show up again. But yeah,
Yeah, here you
both.
are. Here you
Yeah,
are.
here we are. Yes, believe we're both well. I'm thankful for Maction tonight. Absolutely two pretty much meaningless games of Maction tonight. Because the real action is on Friday this week for that conference. But yeah, can't believe it's week 14 already. Crazy.
I'm thankful that the boss, Mr. Somerville, gave me the week off last week so that we could go out and clinch our conference title with 2 games to spare and
Whoop,
put
whoop, whoop.
ourselves in a prime position for a nice run, hopefully back to another national championship game with hopefully a different outcome this year. But that's the wrong sport. Let's talk about a run to a national championship game in the sport you all love.
Oh, you were talking about volleyball this week. You were on another podcast. You were just I don't know, you were cheating on us, Alex. You were off chatting about volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know about a little bit more about my life and my journey coaching volleyball, then that volleyball guy on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I try and sound a little bit less. I tried to not sound quite so holier than thou, and try and come across as a little bit less of a dickhead. But I don't think I did a good job of that. So I'll let you guys make up your minds for yourselves on that one.
No. Yes, college football. It is the end of the regular season. Shed a tear, although we've got the whole playoffs to come. But for the vast majority of the teams, the end of the season will be coming to a grinding halt unless you've got a bowl game coming up. Let's start with the Conference of Chaos because we're going to focus a little bit on what's likely to happen over the holiday weekend. Uh, Big 12, I mean, there's been a lot of noise about the other conferences, but the Big 12 is in complete and utter chaos. And what reading ESPN this afternoon, they had, I don't know, like 1,700 different permutations as to what might happen over the course of the weekend. I think it's fair to say, and I'm not an expert, as you both know, but at least if it's down to 4 teams, right? I think, although 8 teams are really in play. How do you see this weekend playing out? Who do you think is going to make it into the conference championship? And did I ask who's going to win it?
The what I love about this is the fact that I think we sat in late July, early August, whenever it was, and we said, well, the potential for the Big 12 to be the most exciting conference in college football is real. And the on-field product might not have always been the greatest this season compared to some of the other conferences. But coming down to the final weekend of the season, there's no doubt that the Big 12 is the most entertaining, the most chaotic. Great bit of exaggeration from George. There is only 256 different possible permutations for the Big 12, not quite 1,700. But yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy, and it's been, you bring in Pac-12 teams, and this is what you get. Like, we've always been big fans of the Pac-12. You bring in all the pack, the some of the, let's not say the best Pac-12 teams. They all went to the Big Ten, but you bring in some Pac-12 teams to the Big 12, and what happens? You get crazy Big 12 football with Pac-12 cannibalization, and this is where we're at heading into the final week of the season. I think there's one team that's in the pound seat. I'll be honest. I think it's Arizona State. I think they've got a win and they're in. They play on the road. That is a rivalry game, so rivalry games are always a little bit different to what you've seen in the regular season. But I think Arizona State has by far been a better football team than the Arizona Wildcats this season by a considerable margin. So I think Arizona State is very much in the pound seat. They win on the road and they're in. It's as simple as that. So for me, I think they're a lock. then it gets a little bit more chaotic after that. And I'm intrigued to hear your guys' thoughts as to how the Big 12 championship game lines up before I divulge what I think happens on the Friday, Saturday of this coming week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Iowa State have a tricky game, right? I know Kansas State have not really pulled up loads of trees like they have in seasons past, but they're still 8-3. They're 5-3 in the conference, and they're a team that can cause problems when you play them, right? And Iowa State not amazing offensively, right? They've had a decent year at 9-2, but they're squeaking through games. Those two losses coming in back-to-back weeks earlier, obviously in the month of November. And I think, yes, they've refound a little bit of form, but that's a tough game, and that's not one that I'd want to put money on them necessarily coming out on top. I think it'll be super close. I think I probably trust BYU a little bit more to get it done against Houston. Houston only 4-7 on the year. Yeah, they've started to look a little bit better as the weeks have gone on, but BYU's losses again coming in the last couple of weeks, but to a Kansas team that's beaten everyone right now, and to an Arizona State team who have outplayed their ranking, it feels like all year after some troubles there. So yeah, I think I like BYU over Iowa State for me, and then obviously you've got the wild card that is Colorado in there as well, who have playing Oklahoma State, I think, this weekend. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. There's going to be a surprise. One of those three teams is going to lose a game that they shouldn't be losing, right? And I think that's going to determine some of it. But I don't know all the permutations and all the different outcomes and everything else. I'm not as plugged in as Mr. Hodgkinson is, so I'm going to let him take it away with how he thinks.
We've got to mention Kansas here, as you've just touched on there, because it really is chaos because of Kansas, the tail end of their season form, and really pleased for Coach Leipold, our newfound friend on the podcast. But to beat BYU and then to beat Colorado, and the game performance against Colorado was quite amazing, right? Because they raced off to a lead, and then Colorado got themselves back into it, and I think everybody thought, well, here we go, that's it. Colorado are going to win out, but Kansas just kept on, right? And I thought that was an amazing result for them, and that's kind of weird. I do agree that I think Colorado's on the back foot here. I've not seen enough of them, but I just wonder if BYU's performance has tailed off a bit towards the end of the season, and whether that could be the upset, and that would be a shock if they lost to Houston. That would be a massive shock, I would have thought.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, I kind of see it the same way as Alex. I think Farmageddon has got the potential to be a real tricky game for Iowa State, and BYU should dispatch Houston pretty comfortably. They fired their offensive coordinator today, Kevin Barbe, and it's just a team that's looked really out of sorts all season. And for Colorado, they need BYU to lose and Iowa State to lose, and I just can't see both of those results happening. Now Colorado's going to beat Oklahoma State because everyone's beating Oklahoma State this season. They've been so bad. But then you think, look how Kansas destroyed Colorado, and it was Devin Neal absolutely ran through them. And if Ollie Gordon has a good game and really preys on that really average rushing defense that Colorado have got, then there could be an upset there. But I think for me, I think it's Arizona State and it's BYU. Because I think Iowa State is going to struggle with Kansas State. It's a rivalry game, but I think is a little closer than the Arizona State Arizona rivalry game this time around.
Isn't that amazing that that's the last game of the regular season? It's going to be the first game of the 2025 season, right? Because that's the game that's going to be in Dublin. That's amazing, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're traveling to Ireland, if you're traveling to Dublin, try and find a way to watch Kansas State, Iowa State this weekend because it's a real rivalry. It's a real. We talked about it when we were on the Big 12 podcast that we did. We talked about Farmageddon. So yeah, an opportunity to get yourself some Big 12 football if you can find a feed for that this weekend and see what it's all about because
Right.
it's a great rivalry.
Very quickly to wind this segment up, round the houses, who's going to win the Big 12 championship?
I think it's Arizona State.
Yeah, I agree. He beat me to it. I think it's Arizona State.
Isn't that a remarkable tournament? We talked about you didn't. We talked about it last week. Isn't that a remarkable turnaround for that?
Incredible. You think about where they were ranked in and you can't overlook that because Kenny Dillingham pretty much talks about it every single week. But you look where they were ranked in the preseason. You look at everything that Alex touched on it. Then a program that's had difficulties with a lot of things off the field, really struggling to compete from a name, image, and likeness perspective. And they've just done such an incredible job at that program. Kenny Dillingham's probably going to get Big 12 Coach of the Year. If he doesn't, there's been pretty much an injustice there. Their offensive coordinator is nominated for the Broyles Award, and rightfully so. Just lots of really positive stuff around the program that has struggled for years and was kind of set up to struggle as well with a lot of the recruiting mishaps of the former regime.
Yeah, the sanctions, everything. It's amazing.
So yeah, I really like Kenny Dillingham. Sorry, George, I'm going off tangent on a little bit here. I really like him as a coach. I think he's a really good coach. I think he could struggle to get a big time job this year because with this new revenue sharing model that's coming in, schools not really knowing their finances. I don't think you're going to see a lot of schools fire coaches this offseason. And that's something that I've read as well as sort of inferred from the way things are going as well. A lot of the people in the know in the college football media don't expect many head coaches to be fired from big positions this winter. So I wonder if you see him in the NFL, and I know that's a stretch to go from 1 year at Arizona State doing well to then jumping straight in. But I wouldn't surprise me at all if you see the NFL raiding the college football ranks a little bit more this winter because there's not going to be as many big openings in the Power 5 or Power 4 as it is now.
Interesting. Thought the end of that Arizona State game on Saturday was just the most bizarre end to a game that I'd seen in a long time. I think officials did quite well because I thought at one point they could easily have thrown a flag at Dillingham because of the way that he went, absolutely, which should really have thrown Arizona State into a real pickle at that point. But right, let's move on. This is rivalry weekend coming up. There's so many fantastic games. Just in case we run out of time, I would want to touch upon Notre Dame, who we've not spoken about a lot this year, to be honest. And I don't know if they're necessarily flying under the radar because they've been shouting from the rooftops all through the season about getting a playoff place. Is there the potential? Because we have talked about the Trojans a lot. They're now 6-5 on the season, so they're bowl eligible, which I don't think any of us thought we saw that coming at one point in the season. Is there the potential for Lincoln Riley to rock up at the last minute and spoil the Irish season?
No, move on.
I was going to say, me and Alex were like both vying for who was going to say no first. I just think you watch Notre Dame, you watch that defense, like I don't see how they compete in the trenches. USC, I don't see how they compete in the trenches against Notre Dame. I don't foresee an upset there this weekend. I must admit.
You've only made that segment really short so that we can talk about the SEC for longer. Might just jump onto the Big Ten, to be perfectly honest. Okay,
you're never going to skip over the SEC, George. Come on.
Right, so we titled this segment "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly." There's not a lot of good going on in the SEC at the moment. To be fair, you guys called it right at the start of the season. You called it last season, right? That there was the very real possibility of cannibalization happening across the SEC. And the fact that the South Carolina Gamecocks are probably the form team at this moment in time tells us all we need to know about the progression of teams through the season. Let's jump quickly to this weekend, and there's a lot of great games that are happening and great rivalry games. We've got the Egg Bowl, we've got the Iron Bowl. Sadly, neither of those really mean much in the grand scheme of things. But the one game that hasn't been played since 2010, Alex, is the Longhorns going into College Station. And that does mean a whole lot because it means the winner of those goes to the SEC Championship game, but also for Texas, it's got playoff implications. So let's have a quick preview of that game, Alex. I'm going to ask you who's going to prevail, but you tell me what are the keys to Texas winning this game?
I think it's time for Texas to put up, right, in a game like this. Go and put in a performance that shows you're a national championship contender. Because if you're a national championship contender, you go in and you handle Texas A&M, right? We've seen it with Alabama. We've seen it in the past with them, with Georgia, with Clemson when they were in their run, when LSU had their magical season. If you're really a contender, you're going to go in this rivalry game and you're going to win by 10, 15 points. Right? Come out and show us that you've got that in your locker against this Texas A&M team. I think it all starts with the defense for Texas, which is strange and probably not where most people thought it was going to come through at the beginning of the year. But Quinn Ewers hasn't been the same since his injuries. He's been okay, and he's been okay all year. And I, as much as I like him and I like having him as QB1 at Texas, I don't think he is the generational talent that many thought he could be coming in. He's fine. He's a very good high-end college football quarterback, but I don't think he is the guy that I say many people thought he could be. Yeah, it's going to be hard-nosed Texas football, good defense, good rushing attack. And we've seen over the past few weeks that rushing attack for Texas has started to come into things a little bit. And the defense has just stepped up and played really, really well. And I think that's got to be the key for them in this one. Texas A&M has been such an up and down team the last across the whole season. Their November's just been really poor. Losing to South Carolina, you go and beat New Mexico State, but that's a given that's going to be something that happens. And then dropping that game in overtime against Auburn is just not where you want them to be. And that was they had a pretty decent run, right, in this season, and they're on a decent run of point scoring apart from that South Carolina game. So, if Texas can slow them down, then they're going to win. But it's all going to be on that for me on this one, and it's can you take some of the pressure off Quinn Ewers? And if Quinn Ewers has to go out and this offense has to score 45 points to win, then I'm starting to get a little bit shaky. But if they can hold Texas A&M under 30, then I'm taking Texas all day.
I haven't heard much, but I think this is probably purposeful on their part. Have we heard anything about Quinn Ewers this week in terms of his fitness? Because obviously he got hurt again on Saturday, and Manning came in for one play. But I think they probably will keep it quiet. Ollie, Alex makes a good point about this is a game. It's at Kyle Field. It's the biggest stadium in the SEC. We saw last week how important it was for home advantage. There's been a lot of chat about the home advantage in the SEC. This has the potential to be the most difficult game that Texas has played this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you look at the difference in performances with Texas A&M this year on the road, and there's they've been a very different team at Kyle Field, and there's no two ways around that. There's a reason that I'm careful what I say here because I don't actually agree with it, but there was a reason why that was the number one hardest atmosphere to play in college football 25 when the video came out. I mean, everyone knows it should have been LSU, but there's a reason why it is revered, not just within the SEC, but nationally, as a really difficult place to go and play football. So the fact that it is a Texas A&M home game is significant. I think for Texas, it's what version of like Marcel Reed does Texas A&M bring to the table on Saturday? Because you look at the Vanderbilt game, Texas didn't really know what to do with Diego Pavia. And Marcel Reed's a very different kind of dual threat quarterback. Diego Pavia is more he'll run straight through you rather than run around you. But Marcel Reed is a dynamic and electric talent with the ball in his hands. And I think how Texas deals with that is going to be significant to the outcome of the game. Because if they can take that away, Texas A&M is screwed, basically. But Alex talks about the Texas defense, and they've been incredible this year. I don't think they've been given enough credit because people have spent a lot of time talking about the strength of schedule and who they haven't played. But they've got incredible production out of freshman players, seasoned players, sophomore players. They've got incredible transfers. Like they've got great production out of pretty much every area of a defense. Texas A&M, for probably the first time that we've been doing this podcast, has actually got like the production out of the talent. Like I think we talked about it earlier in the year. Mike Elko has done such a great job of getting the performances and the production out of the talented players that are in that locker room, unlike any Texas A&M team that we've talked about. And they're going to be super strong on defense. They're going to pressure Quinn Ewers, and we're going to see what Quinn Ewers is made of. Because, like Alex rightly said, Quinn Ewers hasn't been all that this season. And if Texas A&M can get pressure on Quinn Ewers early and often, we could be in for a very different game than what a lot of people think we might see on Saturday. So I think it's going to be incredible. It's going to be an absolutely incredible game to watch, and obviously the consequences for the college football playoff and the SEC championship game and everything. It's just one of those games you've got to circle around. There's so many different reasons this weekend. It's going to be incredible.
We were hoping that this game would mean something. It being the last game of the regular season, it being a game that hasn't been played for 14 years or whatever it is. We wanted this to be a winner takes all, and certainly in respect of the SEC championship game, it is. The winner will play Georgia next week in Atlanta. So I think this is what we're all wishing and hoping for, which is great.
It's a wild thing that this game, both teams could end up in the college football playoff if everything goes absolutely completely insane. As whoever wrote the script for this season, like they have got they've got it absolutely perfected, because Texas A&M beats Texas. Texas isn't going to drop too far down the college football playoff rankings, but they're not going to have to play in the SEC championship game, so they're not going to lose to someone in that game. So Texas could win. Texas A&M could win the SEC. Texas could end up in the college football playoff anyway. And you could have both of those teams in the college football playoff. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I think irrespective of the noise that's going around college football at this moment in time in terms of the number of permutations and who could be in and who could be out, and again, we record this podcast a couple of hours before the next set of the college football playoff rankings come out. I think this has just been an awesome season, which is kind of how we started the podcast and saying how thankful we are. Just quickly before we wind up, Big Ten, it looks as though they're a lock to have 4 teams in the college football playoff. Who do you think? Oregon are already there. Is it as simple as Ohio State beating Michigan, and then that's how it all plays out in the Big Ten this season?
I think so. And again, go get it done. Don't cock it up here if you're Ohio State. Like, go get the win in your rivalry game. Show that you have the class to make it happen and get into the playoff. Essentially,
is it possible that Michigan upsets Ohio State? I've not seen a ton of them, but I don't know if they've been quite as impressive as I thought they were going to be. But could Michigan beat them?
I don't think they have the facilities for that.
Oh well, that's
No,
it.
I don't think so.
I think there's at least 2 silly questions I've asked on this podcast.
I
to
think
which
you've
I've got
got you got more chance of Maryland upsetting Penn State than you have of Michigan upsetting
Well,
Ohio State.
that is a game that Maryland have won on occasion. In fact, more than
Yeah.
one occasion. That is a real. And I, for one, would not be too upset if Penn State were to. But there you go. That's for another podcast. Right, let's wrap this up. That's all from us on this podcast. If you're listening in the States or you're celebrating Thanksgiving, we hope you have a fantastic time over the weekend. Can't wait to see. Obviously, we've got football all the way through, but a lot of the games will be on Friday. Thanks for listening to us. This is our last podcast in the 100s, because next week will be 200 podcasts old. So hope you'll join us for that. Thanks to Ollie and Alex for the brilliant input. Stay safe and well, and catch you all next time.